And so it doesn't signify anything. That's why I say the different traditions of Buddhism are just like same cake with different icings. So this over here, this is the milk chocolate icing. Sister Wyam and the nuns, that's the dark chocolate icing. So the Tibetan monks, like the Dalai Lama, that's strawberry icing. And the monks you see, like Sister Hui Kan, that's the sort of the combination of vanilla with a bit of blackberry, because it's a bit grey icing. But if you go under the icing, it's the same type of cake, and that's what's really inspired me by going around the world, visiting other monasteries, visiting other teachers, and seeing that when you actually get into what's underneath, what the books say, and how monks and nuns, laymen and laywomen of these different traditions, what they actually do, how they practice, there's no difference. So any differences between the sects of Buddhism is completely superficial. Which is why that I can get invited to these other temples to give talks, and we can have these discussions. I had this amazing discussion at one of these conferences some years ago with a German Tibetan monk, because I wanted to find out, what's your meditation? What have you been doing when you go on these long retreats? Is the form of Tibetan meditation, the Mahamudra, which they call it, is it different than what we do here, the jhana meditations? And we had a wonderful discussion, because being like a Western monk who could speak English, you could actually really get a good discussion going. Some of the problems why we have difficulties with understanding our different traditions is because the language. Because many of the traditional Buddhist monks, they may be, the Chinese monks, you have to understand Cantonese if they come from Hong Kong, or Mandarin if they come from somewhere else, or if they're Vietnamese tradition, you have to understand the Vietnamese, and sometimes it's the language that creates those barriers. Even the Tibetan monks, only a few of them could speak good English. But here was a time when there was a Tibetan monk who spoke perfect, a Tibetan German monk who spoke perfect English. We had a great sort of conversation. I valued that for a long time. It's Lama Londrop, his name was. And I found he was doing exactly the same thing. The same deep meditations of calming the mind down, present moment awareness, silence, watching this breath, getting these beautiful lights and images up and going into the jhanas. And it was so wonderful actually to see this was traditional Tibetan teachings, traditional Theravada teachings, traditional Mahayana jhana teachings. Because when you were going to the very deepest part of Buddhism, you're finding absolutely no difference whatsoever, not an iota of difference. And the only difference is what's superficial on the outside.